Donald Trump's going to have a major problem the second that he walks into the Oval Office, and that is Russia. Something that during his campaign to become president, he campaigned on the fact that he could end this war in 24 hours of taking office. And at this very moment, we're a few days away, but I will say this, that is physically impossible. And Trump has also stated that it could take several months. So where are we right now? Where is Russia on a peace plan? Where is Ukraine on the peace plan? And where is Trump on a peace plan? Let's go ahead and kind of back up for a second here. When Russia first invaded Ukraine, they wanted many things. They wanted territory, they wanted Ukraine to have a limited military, and they wanted Ukraine to never join NATO. This is pretty much what they've wanted from day one, and I will say this, almost 3 years later, that has not changed whatsoever. In a speech that Putin gave back in June, he kind of outlined what he wanted. It was A, no membership for NATO, ever. That is a non-starter for them. They never want Ukraine to ever have any military alliance with anyone, which is already something that's just like, okay, well, that's off the table, right? Because clearly Ukraine needs security guarantees. Next is they want to have land. The land that they currently conquer includes many different stuff, Luhansk, Donetsk, and Zaporizhia, different other regions. Russia not only wants the land that they currently occupy, they also want the other 20 to 30% that they don't occupy. So pretty much give us the entire state, all of that land, even the stuff that we currently do not have. We want that stuff. And then the worst of it all is that they want Ukraine to have a military but very small, and they don't want that military to be any kind of threat to them. And they've said that, yes, okay, and this is just recent, by the way, that you can give Ukraine some kind of weapons to protect themselves, but they cannot use it against us. Now, I know what you're saying. Wait a minute, that's the most recent update what Putin wants? Yes. If you've noticed, there really is no update except for Ukraine can have some weapons, but they can't use those weapons against us. What Putin is doing is he's setting up Russia to essentially pause fighting for a little bit and then later on down the line restart it to try to take more of Ukraine. And this is the issue that Donald Trump is going to have to deal with because Putin and Russia, they do not want to compromise. They do not want to negotiate. They want what they want. And I will say this, I think Trump learned that very quickly as soon as he won the presidency. Because it went from several, 24 hours, okay? That was only, back in November. To then it became, we have to look into things. Then Keith Kellogg, who's going to be his person in charge of peace talks with Ukraine, did an interview with Fox and said, actually, it's probably going to be 100 days. And then you had Trump come out and say, well, it could be 6 months. Realistically, there's a few things you have to look at here. First is, what does Ukraine want? The first thing you have to understand in all of this is that Russia is the aggressor here. They invaded a peaceful country who was independent. They wanted nothing to do with Russia. And it's more than just something that happened just 3 years ago. It started in 2014 and even prior to that. And if you watched Zelensky's interview with Lex Friedman, you would be able to learn a lot of the history and learn that, hey, Zelensky tried peace deals and ceasefires with Putin, and none of them worked. Every single time that Zelensky would give, olive branch, we'll do this, we'll try this, we'll do that, nothing worked. Heck, the United States under Obama gave Crimea to Russia, hoping that that would stop them. That didn't work. The United States had promised Ukraine, hey, if Russia comes to attack you, we'll protect you guys. Just give us your nukes. That threat didn't stop. So clearly, security guidelines or security promises need to be put in place to stop Putin from doing this to Ukraine. And so in Zelensky's plan, there are many different steps, of course, involving they want their land back, and they understand they'll have to negotiate for Crimea another time. They want to become a part of NATO. They want security guarantees. They want these things so that Russia can never do this not only to Ukraine, but pretty much any other country. Because up to this point, there has been absolutely no accountability for Putin. He just does what he does. What he did in Romania, what he did in Georgia, what he did for U.S. elections years ago, and sort of what he did now. Then you've got everything going on in Ukraine, of course. So there needs to be some kind of Putin, what you did was horrible, you have to pay the price to it. And at this very moment, Putin doesn't see that. He doesn't feel the need to kind of come to the negotiation table and talk about the things that he's done wrong and then compromise. Which brings us up to what is going on behind the scenes. Because you may not realize this because it takes a while. But in order for really Russia to start crumbling, you have to go after the money, and that's where the sanctions come in. And right now, it's finally starting to happen. So if you back up, when Russia first started their invasion of Ukraine, companies pulled out of Russia. Russia kind of adapted. There was a lot of things that Russia prepared for to do this, talking about credit card sales and the way that they can kind of move their money. They remove themselves from certain markets and actually pair themselves up with countries like China to make sure their money can kind of stay up there. And while in the beginning, it did hit the Russian economy bad, it did bounce back because the biggest money maker for Russia is gas and oil. They are one of the largest providers, producers, and just creators of everything dealing with gas. And everyone said from the very beginning, in order to really cause Russia to collapse, you have to go after the thing that makes them money. Because essentially, gas and oil makes Russia money, but it also makes the oligarchs money. That money helps them to buy things, including weapons for Ukraine. So if you're able to really siphon off how much money they can make, if you could cause disruptions in their service, then ultimately Russia won't make as much money. The oligarchs will get angry at Putin. Then Russia cannot afford to buy or produce weapons for Ukraine. And so over the past 3 years, we've seen almost every country in this world try to throw sanctions onto Russia, whether that's going after the Russian shadow fleet by making them not go to any port whatsoever, whether that's going after just oligarchs, going after their bank accounts, whether it's putting sanctions on people and or businesses. Those are things that help, but it takes a lot of time. And it's more than just trying to sanction them. You also need to disrupt the way that this oil and gas is being made or pushed out. And we just really started seeing a lot of that recently because as sanctions are going on, Russia is still able to produce these things and sell them, sure, not at the number they're used to, but they could still sell them on the black market to China, Iran, North Korea, and other countries, or even get around sanctions by putting these ships out there. That's the shadow fleet. And so as the rest of the world is sanctioning Russia on top, Ukrainians are going right to the source. They have been really hard, especially in the past month, attacking oil depots, refineries, places in which this stuff is being stored. Because if you're attacking it from the top and the bottom, you're going to be able to squish together that pressure. Because the oligarchs are going to get angry at Putin, which we've already seen a lot of Russian elite come forward and say, hey, we thought this would be done a while ago. Heck, we even saw the Prime Minister of Hungary, Orban, come out just yesterday and kind of urge Europe and the United States that, oh, you guys need to stop these sanctions. It's not doing any good. You guys need to become friends again. Which means that Putin is clearly talking to all of his allies saying, we're running into a problem here. And when that problem finally happens, that's when we're going to officially see Putin come to the table. Because the oligarchs are going to get angry because they're not making as much money. Russia isn't going to be able to buy weapons, and they're not going to be able to produce gas or oil in which they can then make money to buy those weapons. And where's that money going to come from? He's going to start taxing everyone in the country to another level, which he has already done. So that would also mean that the people of Russia could be getting angry soon. It's all of that pressure that's going to build up that is going to finally allow Putin to be like, oh my God, I need to come forward and I need to start talking. Ukraine is really, honestly, they're stepping up their attacks when it comes to oil depots. When it comes on the Trump side, he's understanding this. He's understanding that the sanctions are working. He understands that we need to put more pressure on them. Because at the end of the day, I think even Zelensky says this, Trump doesn't want to lose. He doesn't want to get in a position to where it makes the United States look bad. Because if the U.S. did pull out today, Ukraine could continue, especially with EU support, but more than likely, according to historians, in about 12 to 16 months, Ukraine would eventually fall. because it is the weapons that the U.S. produces that are really what's holding back the Russians. And really, what's a win-win for the U.S., right? I mean, we're giving Ukraine these weapons. We're actually giving them our old weapons. We're making new stuff for ourselves. We're actually giving them weapons we don't even use anymore. It's costing us money to store these things, and it would cost us money just to take them apart. This stuff is being used on the front lines. Other countries are looking at this stuff and then going, wow, it's really good. They're buying that stuff from us. And at the same time, we're destroying one of our enemies. And we're not sending a single soldier. It's a win-win for the United States. And I really, truly think that Trump is starting to understand that. And that's why that timeline, Keith Kellogg, 100 days, Trump, 6 months, realistically, in order to really get these sanctions and all of this destruction to really get to a point, you're looking at 9 months. From the historians that I've spoken to, even though sanctions have been around for a while, it just takes sometimes years to get in, we're at a point now to where the sanctions are starting to work. They're starting to work. And you just need a little more to finally start pressuring Putin to go, we're not winning this. We're not doing good here. The only other thing I need to add here is this. Negotiations with Putin, how do you get it to a point to where it would be acceptable for Ukrainians who've lost everything? I mean, Ukrainians who lived in Avdiivka, Bakhmut, Mariupol, whose houses were legitimately flattened. Putin came in and he hit every building to make sure that nothing is there whatsoever. What would be the most ideal peace plan in which Ukrainians would be okay with? And to be honest with you, there really is no right answer. Because realistically speaking, Ukraine should be able to get every single inch of their territory back, including Crimea. Ukraine should be able to join NATO today. Ukraine should be able to get things like Tomahawks and put them in their country in order for them to protect themselves if Russia ever attacks. And realistically, Ukraine should be getting every single frozen dollar that every country has ever gotten and give that to Ukraine. So any frozen Russian assets, and give that to Ukraine so that you can rebuild. Even at that point, I would say that's still not enough. I don't think that's punishing Putin in Russia enough because they're still meddling. They're still going into different elections and causing things to go haywire. So my question for you is this. What punishment do you think Russia should get for doing what they did? Let me know in the comment section below. And if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe, turn on notifications, and give this video a thumbs up. As we're moving from TikTok to YouTube, expect more long-form videos like this talking about what I know. I mean, I've been studying this war since it started, but I've been reporting Ukraine way before that. The first time I went to Ukraine was 2016. I know. Where did the days go? They've been flying by. Anyway, I'm Joey. Stay safe. I'll see you later.